Yeah.
But like we went to Arizona, and I remember we were very touristy, by the way. We show up to Arizona in the height of summer, and we're like, let's get a convertible. And we're like, top down, and we're like cruising down the highway and had to pull over because it was entirely too hot to have the top down. Everyone who was driving by us was like, look at these tourists.
Not that many people had a chance to say that because we only drove for like 7 minutes before we were like, we're gonna put this motherfucking top down up. We're about to die.
It was so hot.
Welcome to the Easy Speak Speakeasy.
You've unlocked the door to unfiltered mental health and wellness conversations.
Okay.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know it's juicy.
Episode 17.
Yeah. This is like the topic that I feel like no matter where you go, it's a conversation now. It used to be this like thing nobody talked about, very much like mental health, but now it's in our face.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about it. And of course, it affects our mental health as well. So, Obviously.
What doesn't?
What doesn't? So before we dive in, cheersies.
Cheersies. Oh, this is looking real good.
This is a summer Almond Joy.
Ooh, yeah. I can feel the joy getting ready to radiate through my body.
Oh, yeah.
Little ASMR moment.
That is so good. It was a more frothy when I made it, an hour ago.
But, that's the rate of speed at which we move.
Yeah. So, also because it's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot today.
Speaking of climate.
It's hot. So we're moving slow because we are not trying to get too sweaty.
Yes. And also, we have to turn our air conditioner off so everybody doesn't have to listen to AC.
True that.
In the background.
True that.
I don't even want to listen to my ACs.
I know.
Period.
It's like
they drive me nuts.
I know. It's like when they go off, that's when you realize how much they were driving you crazy. Like the hood fan on the stove.
Yes.
Like that sound. I hate that.
Yes.
And then like when it goes off, I'm like, oh, that's why I was so aggravated.
You're like, no wonder I've been screaming at everyone.
Yeah. I'm like, oh.
You're like, I didn't know why I was so mad that these kids weren't eating their broccoli.
Why are you breathing so loud? Oh my God. When I can hear people's like chewing sounds, plus there's like other stimulation going on, I lose it. But anyway,
there's a thing for that.
It's called
actual diagnosis.
I know. I forget. I used to
know
it.
Long old name.
Something on autophonia, something like
that.
Yeah. It really drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like I cannot. Like I just instant rage. It's such a weird thing.
Yeah. My favorite podcast, Sarah Silverman show.
Yeah.
She has that.
Oh, she does?
And she talks about how like the people in her life have like learned to understand that she doesn't mean to like have a complete meltdown and storm out of the kitchen.
Yeah. Just you were like, why are you slurping your yogurt?
The sound of them like biting their lettuce is like
I hate it
way more than she can handle.
I hate it. It's one of the biggest icks of life.
Yeah.
I used to have a roommate who would eat at like 2 a.m. and we in college.
God. A little top ramen slurp.
Oh, God. I'm gonna cry.
Even the thought of it.
Oh, I can't even handle it. Oh,
it's too hot in here to laugh
it's too
hard.
hot. Which is, let's get back to
bring it back.
Bring it back to the topic at hand before I lose it. But yeah, climate change. Whoa. And are we feeling it or what?
Totally.
I never know what season we're in. I know what month we're in, but it never seems to match up with this season that I grew up thinking it should be.
Totally.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, like, when I think back to, like, when I was younger, I remember, like, I don't know why this always comes up for me when I think about, like, the change in climate, but I always think about how for Easter, as a kid, like I used to get super dressed up and I'd have like the cute dress and hat and like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And you could wear that like in late March, early April, and you'd be okay.
Yeah.
But now it's like, good luck.
Yeah.
You can't wear a pair of like Mary Janes and some tights.
No.
In a floral.
Oh, I love
You can't wear a floral print.
I love
in
Mary
March.
Janes. I know. Yeah, it's too cold.
It's like people.
It's like everything's still dead. It's like. Yeah.
Well, no, now what's happening is like there'll be 2 nice days and all the flowers are like, wee!
Yeah.
And then it snows.
Yeah.
And the flowers are like, oh.
They're like, oh.
Yeah. It's terrible.
I know. It's so true.
So that's like my gauge on like where the weather is. Like when I think about my own timeline in life is like how I used to love getting dressed up.
Yeah.
At Easter, and now
it's so true.
Now I'm like, where are my sweatpants? And cozy socks.
That's a really good point. And like the fact that we're just now having summer, like we had a couple of heat waves in the spring this year, and then it got like cold again, and then it was raining for like 2 months, and then now all of a sudden it wants to be summer when everyone's back to school and work. Yeah, and in the Northeast. But then like when you look at Arizona, they had something like 25 or 27 days in a row where it was over 120 degrees. Oh my God. And then they realized it was over 120.
Yeah.
So how do you even go outside?
You don't.
Okay.
And then in that span of time, on those evenings, like I think it was somewhere around 50% of those evenings, the temperature never dropped below 100.
Oh, wow.
So like
that's scary.
They were above 100 degrees, just like round the clock.
Just cooking.
Just frying egg on on the concrete.
I mean, we went to Arizona. Was that a year ago at this point?
2 years ago.
Arizona was 2 years ago?
Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, because you were supposed to go to a steak place.
I'm so confused.
What's known for the steaks?
Nebraska. That was this year.
Yes.
So then last year was Arizona.
Right. That's like 2 years.
Okay. I understand. Okay.
Right?
We're talking about the same thing.
Who knows what time is?
I know. But anyway,
time left in the pandemic. So let's not go on that track.
Exactly. I think that's why I'm like just don't even know.
Yeah.
But like we went to Arizona, and I remember we were very touristy. By the way, we show up to Arizona in the height of summer, and we're like, let's get a convertible. And we're like, top down, and we're like cruising down the highway and had to pull over because it was entirely too hot to have the top down. Everyone who was driving by us was like, look at these tourists.
Not that many people had a chance to say that because we only drove for like 7 minutes before we were like, we're gonna put this motherfucking top down up. We're about to die.
It was so hot. I just remember like getting out of the car and just like sweat, like when you can feel sweat in all the places just like dripping,
and it's such dry heat there that it's like
that's what they always say. They have little mugs that say that on there, by the way, so if you think you're being clever by saying that, like everyone goes there, at least it's a dry heat.
But the thing about it is like when you take a breath in, it's like all the moisture's gone from your mouth.
That is the definition of parched. Yes.
You can't like breathe. Mm-mm. If you want to have any type of like moisture,
you need some spray, some water. Yeah.
That place is made for those fans that mist at the same time. Like that someone who lives in Arizona must have come up with that idea.
It had to have. Desert or something. But yeah, I mean it's like so crazy to think about just all the different weather pattern changes and like storms and sea level rising and like unfortunately like fires, right? Like what just happened in Hawaii. Like I feel like climate change may or may not have played a role in that. I think they're still debating on what the actual cause was, but like Mother Nature is definitely rebelling against us here on Earth, like,
Yeah.
1,000%. Like,
Yeah.
it used to be, they used to call it global warming.
Yes.
Right? And I
But
think
people couldn't understand
people
that for
couldn't
some reason.
understand that. And so, like, because they couldn't understand it, like, mitigation wasn't an active thing. And still even till to this day, right? But, like, I think that's also super interesting as we're talking about, like, the human psyche, the fact that, like, the way we hear something totally influences, like, our ability to grasp the information and take action, right? So now we're calling it climate change because in some places it doesn't feel like it's getting hotter. It just feels like the weather is more volatile, right? That's like more of a palpable concept for people because they can see the volatility versus, like, if you're living somewhere where it's like freezing all year round, maybe it doesn't feel like it's getting warmer per se. So, but I just always thought that was interesting. Like, we've shifted from global warming talk to climate change.
I also think that people really don't understand how massive a degree shift is on a global scale.
Yeah.
Which is a difficult concept, especially if you don't know anything about the environment or, climate. And so you're thinking like, wow, my house was 75 degrees and now it's 76.
Yeah.
I don't feel like my roof is going to cave in
Right.
or whatever. But when you're talking about the size of the earth and the entire earth heating up a degree, that's a massive amount.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, a really scary thing. But it's interesting, how we've had to, like, reframe.
Yeah, you have to rebrand a calamity.
Right, right.
In order for people to understand it,
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
But I think, it's interesting how some of these things are happening together. I think about, like, the pandemic, which I mentioned, and now with climate change, like, there are just a lot of major things that are happening right now in the world around the earth that are really impacting people's mental health.
Yeah.
And these are like traumatic events, traumatic times.
Yeah.
Everybody processes trauma differently.
Yeah.
And maybe would be an interesting episode to have soon, is to talk about, like, what trauma actually means to different people.
Yeah.
Because I think some people feel like trauma is like an abuse or, a massive car accident or, like, these huge things that can occur, but everybody's brain processes things differently. So something that one of us could brush off could be, like, massive for the other one of us in terms of trauma and how we, like, really process that.
Yeah.
And so I think right now it feels like not only, like, the physical world is in a volatile state, but much of the human species is in a very volatile state.
Yeah.
And people feel very impacted. And this is really the only time that I can recollect in my life where, as a global human species, we have these things that are happening to all of us.
Yeah.
I think, like, growing up, there have been smaller pandemics or smaller outbreaks or different things that have happened. Like, there have been really bad tsunamis that have happened or earthquakes. And so, like, we've seen, like, disease outbreaks and supported, like, other places around the world throughout time. But now this really feels like we're all in this pandemic together. We're all in this climate change crisis together. Like, and to me it feels like we have to come together and figure out a way to get through these times. And I get really pissed about, like, some of the debate around these things. So, for people who don't know me, I'm, like, really about the environment, and I'm an avid recycler. I really call out pretty much anyone, even strangers, about like using single-use plastic. Like just some of these like basic things that I feel like, what?
Yeah.
Like why? This is simple.
Yeah.
Not only is it simple, it saves you money. Like
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it's like duh.
Yeah.
Like why are you walking around with a freaking water bottle made out of plastic?
Poland Springs.
I can't
I know.
like understand this. It's like beyond my ability. I feel like I'm about to go off on a tangent. You should take over for a minute because I'm getting upset.
I know. Well, I mean, I think your passion is echoed by like a lot of people, you know, but I also think that a huge part of it is the fact that you have the knowledge, right? Like I think a lot of what drives the behaviors that are, you know, making it challenging for our planet is ignorance, right? Like a lot of people don't know, you know, like the impact, like you said, like 1 degree shift and how that's connected to the water bottle in your hand, right? Like a lot of people don't know the like in between story between them, you know, purchasing a 24 pack of water from the grocery store and the tsunami that happened halfway across the world, right? Like it's a very large concept, and I think a lot of times, you know, when people are just faced with like their day-to-day lives, it's really challenging to like think bigger than themselves and to think bigger than their immediate community, or you know, and think about things like you said, like on a whole, you know. And I think that's one of the things to remember. And like, you know, with like the shift from global warming to climate change, you know, I think that was a very good shift. But then it's also how are we providing the general public opportunities to learn about this in a way that's not controversial? Because the other unfortunate thing that's happened as a result of global warming, climate change, all of that, is that it's become highly politicized, especially in our country. And so, you know, there's it's really challenging to hear something that's true from the opposition, because we're trained to just listen to the people who echo our own sentiments and feelings. And so it's just like it becomes so amorphous. But I feel like, you know, finding ways to educate people and stripping away that political aspect of it, stripping away that, like, you know, I feel like some people get defensive, right? Because they feel like it's not my fault, right? Like, you know what I mean? And then like once people are in that space, it's really challenging for them to learn something new. So, you know, I think all of that's like contributed to why it's such a hard and difficult topic to talk about sometimes, and why it becomes like a point of contention, even though it shouldn't, because it's affecting us all, and like either we're going to survive as a species or we're not. Like,
yeah, totally. I mean, even when we talk about some of the like political stuff, you know, my next step on that goes to like following the money.
Yeah.
And then that makes me think about like accessibility to make these changes, right? So like when you go to the grocery store, the reality is like you can get a 3 packs of 24 waters for like $10 or $15, especially in the summer, right, of plastic bottles. But if you want to make the choice to buy spring water that's in a carton in paper or whatever, you're gonna pay like 5 or 6 or 7 times that amount.
Yeah.
And so like when we think about how are we gonna make a change, like it also has to economically make sense.
Right.
And I'm sure there are lots of people who really feel like I want to make this change, but like I need to send my kids to school with water every day, and I can't afford to send my 4-year-old with a $3 bottle of water that they might spill the second they like open it, or whatever.
And you may try to buy those reusables and they lose them.
Yeah, like, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
So like they're so expensive. Like water bottles for kids are like $15. I mean, you know, whatever. Like you make your money back, but yeah. So you know. It's really interesting. I think that, you know, in preparing for today's episode,
I did a lot of research about climate change and mental health. And I was actually pretty pleased to see how many people are starting to talk about it. Now, when I say pleased to see, I'm talking about climate change and mental health. So, like, we're talking about probably 2%.
Yeah.
You know, but
how far down on Google did you have to go?
It was right at the top.
Oh,
it was
okay,
right
good.
at the top.
Good.
But, you know, in like, there's a great report that came out by the World Health Organization, which we will share the link for. But one of the main things that it says on there is that in almost all of the planning that's happening worldwide around thinking about climate change, there's almost no one yet who has actually talked about the planning around mental health related to that. So there's lots of plans around like physical impacts and, you know, all of that, but people really aren't thinking about what it means to plan for climate change physically, climate change mentally, which, you know, I know from our standpoint, like as people who are so like enwrapped in mental health and bringing it to the forefront, but I always feel like the mental health should be first. Like if you can't function and think clearly to make decisions, like your physical health is going. You know, like you can't really be in great physical health and your mental health be failing. Like those two things don't happen very often. It's typically in reverse order. You have to have some sort of state of like mental strength, stability, wellness. And then like the physical usually comes with that. So it's kind of wild that like mental health just under every topic is at the bottom of the list.
It's like, oh yeah, and maybe we should think about this. It's like,
it's just like kind of wild. But some of the statistics were kind of staggering. Let me see if I can pull up a quick.
Because I mean, eco-anxiety is a real thing, right? You know, there are definitely people walking amongst us right now who are having intrusive thoughts about the next disaster or what's going to happen or what the weather's doing or how it's going to, you know, and like over time that's definitely going to wear on you from a mental health perspective, you know, even if you're not directly impacted right now, just thinking about it, seeing all the stuff on the news, like you said, it's a trauma response, right? It kicks in that like that survival aspect of your brain, right? Because like these are huge disasters. People are losing their lives, they're losing their homes, they're losing, you know, their communities, right? And all of that is so closely tied to our sense of safety and survival, which, you know, all of that ties into trauma. So, you know, like even if it's not directly affecting us, you know, from a physical standpoint, you know, the trauma is there for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, some of these stats were very interesting. You know, some of them are, I feel like, somewhat expected that we hear around like mental health. But, you know, there was one particular bit of research that stuck out to me coming out of the University of Cambridge. And they analyzed 41 different studies around extreme weather events. And in those studies, they found that gender-based violence was exacerbated by extreme weather and climate events.
What?
Across the board.
What is that? Interesting.
I know. I thought that was really interesting.
It's an interesting correlation.
It said contributing factors included economic shock, social instability, enabling environments, and stress. And so I was really thinking like, wow, like that's something that I would probably never put together.
Never.
So that was pretty interesting. Of course, they talked about post-traumatic stress, PTSD, you know, for people who have gone through a number of these events, survived these wildfires, floods, droughts, you know, all of these things that are happening right now. And there's been a lot of increase in suicide especially amongst certain populations. So like farmers who have really felt a huge economic impact because of the weather changes and how to sustain their business.
Produce, life cycles of livestock. I mean, so much is influenced.
Yeah. So like the numbers of suicide in populations that typically weren't even on the radar.
Yeah, they were living their best lives farming
Yeah,
off the grid.
They were out there off the grid, outside, working in the earth. These are all the things that we talk about that are good for your mental health.
Yeah.
And then...
But you can't sustain your livelihood. And then, also, like, it's kind of crazy to think about how many businesses have ruined farmland, right? We talk about following the money. How many businesses come in and like take land that was once our farmland to build whatever. That's probably not helping our environment. So it's like double whammy.
Don't even get me started on soil.
Oh my gosh.
Don't get me started on soil. I get so upset about the state of soil.
Oh yeah, it's really bad.
It's awful.
It's very
It
contaminated.
is really awful. And then of course in higher temperatures there's a huge increase of aggression. As we've talked about. Trying to beat the heat and higher violent crimes. Just in Los Angeles on days when the heat rose above 85 degrees, there was an increase of 5.7% in violent crimes.
5% is not a small amount.
No.
That's significant.
It is.
Wow.
And then generally, around like anxiety.
It's time to start building that bunker.
I know. Seriously.
Underground bunker.
Anybody have a shovel?
Hydroponic plants.
Does anyone have
Grow
a
your
shovel?
own food off the grid.
Yes. We need some of that astronaut food that you get from like the Museum of Science.
Can I just tell you that I saw a TikTok the other day about how to make them?
Is that what we're going to be? Can we make alcoholic ones for the next show?
Freeze-dried alcoholic.
Yes!
That would be amazing, actually. What a great business idea.
Oh my gosh.
For the, we'll call it apocalyptic juice or something like that.
And then sort of the last main area was anxiety around climate. And it said that typically people report an overwhelming sense of fear, sadness, and dread in the face of the warming planet or anxiety around its effects. And there was a survey completed in 2020 that 56% of U.S. adults said climate change is the most important issue facing the world today. And that nearly half of young adults, 18 to 34, said they feel stress over climate change on a daily basis. And I was like...
18 to 24-year-olds.
They're going to be the ones that save the world.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gen Z is going to save us.
Yeah.
I have to do my Gen Z impression.
I don't know, though.
When it comes to Gen Z... I give them a lot of shit because sometimes they're like, literally, who's gonna lift this box at my job? I know that it's written in my job description, but like, how airtight is my job description?
Can we modify that right now?
I feel like I have a good reason, and it's because boxes make me feel stressed.
And currently, I'm offended.
Yes.
They're always offended.
I'm
offended.
I'm very bothered, and I'm going on TikTok to talk about it.
I'm going to cry, too.
But
anyway,
when it comes to
I feel so old whenever I talk about Gen Z. I'm always like, what is going on with kids these days?
Whoa. There goes my water.
The Gen Z spirits are like...
I don't, because I talk about all generations, so...
That's true. That's true.
When it comes to the Gen Z generation, though, they don't play when it comes to the environment, and they don't play. I think it's like we make fun of their rights to things. Like that's what that is that we're making fun of, right?
Yeah.
But like
the entitlement, yeah.
Yeah, but they're also like, we're entitled to live on a planet that like we can freaking breathe. Do you mind?
Yeah.
Is it okay with you, Grandma? Like if you stop like whatevering?
Stop with the Teflon, Grandma.
Yeah, seriously. Like all of those things. So like and the way that they creatively get their point across, like listen, nothing makes me happier than when Gen Z decides to like bomb some sort of a like politically charged situation around like climate change or something, and they like go online and buy out all the like free tickets, and then nobody shows up to it. They're like, sorry, why don't you guys learn how to use the internet, the World Wide Web, as you used to call it back in your day.
I didn't realize they do that kind of thing. That's so cool.
They do these things where
all I can see in my mind's eye right now is Greta. With her angry ass face.
I love that girl.
Glaring.
Oh, talk about like making a statement at like any age.
I know she was like what, like 12 when she first came on the scene.
Yeah,
I remember being like,
I wonder how old she is now.
Probably like 18.
To me, one of the most badass things she ever did was ride on like a industrial steamship. Because she was attending like a speech, and she doesn't fly, so she like got on like an industrial boat that like happened to be going where she was going, so that she could give this speech.
Oh my god!
I was like, that's committed to the cause.
Oh my gosh, she doesn't fly. Like why? She doesn't like it.
Flying is so bad for the environment.
Oh.
Planes are the worst.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
That's why, like, a lot of times when you get on planes now, they talk about their net neutral, or they use some language like that,
and how where they mitigate it.
Whatever toxins they're kicking out into the world as they're flying, they're doing other things to offset, what they're doing, but in other ways.
Why hasn't someone like come up with the idea of having it like a airplane that was like an air purifier? Like, why isn't that a thing?
Like a Tesla airplane?
But that actually purifies the air as it flies. Like it takes in air and it does some shit and then it spits it out and it's clean air. That would be amazing. Like
sounds like a Tesla. I mean, it's the gas that is the problem.
Oh.
It's all.
So if it was like an electric plane.
Yeah, but you can only drive an electric car so far before you're like, does anybody have an outlet I can use?
Imagine being on that plane and being like, oh shit, we out of juice. Anybody got a charger?
We need like space stations.
Yes.
Like hovering in the air where planes could pull up and.
Now we talking about the Jetsons.
I like this. Meet the Jetsons.
I love that show.
Me too.
Oh. I haven't thought about that show in a minute.
The only thing close to a robot I have in my house is my vacuum.
I was gonna say, me too.
Sad. So, back to mental health and the environment.
Yep.
I think, people like Greta and another like person who I love is like Jane Fonda. I mean, she's just been an activist.
Yeah.
For so long.
I can see her now with her glasses on.
Yeah, for so many different causes. I read something about her the other day when I was lounging by the pool. And she's just lived such a great life of activism.
Yeah.
But she's right now, she's very much into the climate, and she does something on Fridays called Fire Something Fridays. I can't think of it in the moment.
Fire.
And it's about pulling together these events every Friday to bring awareness to environmental causes and all these kinds of things. And so I think, it's important that people are allowed
Yeah.
You know, I think this is how I think about mental health and like what we do, and like when we decided to start the podcast is like there has to be a place where you have like conversations that are like completely open, completely like honest.
Yeah.
And you say the things that are like real, and people have to like just face the music sometimes on like where we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like we can't have an entire planet of stressed out people, and the planet is stressed out, and
so many reasons.
It's just very bad energetically.
It's just so bad energetically.
Just not good at all.
We need you know what we need is a plane to fly around the earth burning sage.
That would be great.
Like
it would also be burning gas and other toxins.
An electric plane.
Elon, pay attention.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to build me the code for a 3D software that will print a electric plane.
A 2-seater. It'll just be me, you, and the largest sage stick ever known to man.
Yeah.
Ask it to build the code for a plane that runs on sage. That's the winner.
Oh, winner. That would be amazing. Oh my God. And you know what's going to come next? The people that smoke weed will be like, you know what would be better? Since everybody's so damn stressed all the time. Just replace that sage with a little bit of, the good stuff.
No one's going to pay for that. Who's going to pay for that?
Marijuana industry will. They sure will. Put their logo on the side of the plane.
There'll be a list of people that put their name on the side of that plane.
Snoop Dogg, hit me up. He would be the one. He'd be like, it's for climate change. He'll be like, bet.
Coach Snoop.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I feel like, like you said, having those like spaces for people, but really you hit the nail on the head. We've got a stressed out planet. We've got stressed out people. And so really for me, what that means ultimately is that creating these spaces where people feel safe to have the conversations and to be able to feel like they're not going to be judged for what they don't know or the habits that they've held, or, like being able to be in space with one another, I think is like one of our biggest challenges as a human species right now. I just feel like there's so much contention all the time.
Well, if we're in fucking bunkers, guess what? People are going to have to get over that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
If we're living underground in bunkers, you're going to learn how to be in space with people real quick.
My bunker will not be open to the public. I don't know what you're talking about. I am not going in no community bunker. Nope.
Nope, no ma'am.
No ma'am.
You gotta think long and hard about who's gonna be in your bunker.
Shit. Yeah.
But I think, people thinking about, I think there's a couple of things. Always, like we always talk about, thinking about your mental health, thinking about self-care, learning to, ahead of time, identifying the things that are making you upset. Are you hot? Is it 95 degrees outside and you're cooking dinner and the fan is running?
That's me.
And you're about to pull all your hair out of your head.
That's me tonight. That's me in T-minus 2 hours. Actually.
That's like, write it down. This is one of the things that's gonna really set me off.
Yeah, I might need to rethink that dinner plan.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take out
rotisserie chicken from the store.
Takeout's got to be bad for the environment too. I mean, anything we do is pretty much bad. Like if you drive a car.
Do you want to get me started on takeout containers?
Nope.
I mean, honestly, you
can't recycle pizza boxes. I found out a couple of years ago.
You can't recycle them if they have grease on them,
which they almost always do.
Yeah.
So
also those black containers with the clear tops.
yeah.
You can't recycle the black part.
Oh, I didn't realize. I always just throw all of it in the recycling.
Nope.
I'm
You
sorry
can't
sorry for the poor soul who's been sorting through my recycling.
Right. Can't recycle the black part, and you really 100% should not reuse them.
Yeah, they're so bad. People microwave those.
I know.
Whoa.
I'm like, what are you trying to give yourself?
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah. No. All that takeout it
God.
generates so much trash.
It's freaking me out with this iPad right now.
Why?
It's just like teeter-tottering on your leg.
Don't worry, my thigh has plenty of space to hold it. It's just fine.
Adequate surface area. Good to know.
And I think other things that help in these sorts of times are learning about things that you can do to help to mitigate some of these challenges.
Yep.
You know, I think a lot of people don't fully know about recycling, right? Like, I started following a bunch of different accounts on Instagram. I know I'm going to be scrolling through Instagram, so having some accounts that I follow that are about recycling.
Like composting is really good.
Yeah, composting. I really want that thing that sits on the top of your counter and you put all the stuff in it, you run it overnight and it turns into soil. This is like...
I almost got you that for your birthday, but that thing was so expensive. I was like...
That's why I didn't get it.
I was like, maybe for like... I'll save up for it.
You couldn't even define it till I just now.
I was like, I'll just...
Other people are starting to make it now, so... Like, the price point is coming down. That first one was, when it first came out, it was like $800.
Yeah, well, that's how, like, it was around that.
Yeah.
It was like $500 or $600, and I was like...
Yeah, but it's pretty awesome. You can throw, like, literally anything in there. And then you have the most nutrient-rich soil.
I know. So good.
Oh, it's a plant mom recycling person's dream.
I really wanted to get you that this year, and I was like...
But I mean, even just, I think, learning about, there's so many things that I think people don't, know about, like fast fashion, you know, like,
that's true.
This is like...
Shein. You're talking about Shein, for you Shein girlies out there. I used to be a Shein girly.
Yeah, like, you're really killing the planet with that, like, it takes like 5 gallons of water to make a regular cotton t-shirt. Like, people don't realize that. It's just, there's so much, I think, that we can learn.
Yeah.
And then once you have that knowledge, then you can just start to make better choices.
Right.
Like, so if you're going to buy clothes, like, maybe you spend a little bit more money and take better care of your clothes.
Right.
So they last you longer.
Right.
You learn how to, like... You can make
I can hear you right now.
1,000 outfits out of what you have in your closet.
I could hear you saying that, and I could also hear you saying, you put your clothes in the dryer?
Literally.
She doesn't dry anything. I don't. There's no way as a mom with little kids that works for me, but I aspire to be like you one day where I can hang everything.
I mean, when my kids were little, I dried their stuff.
Yeah.
But I never dried mine. My clothes have to last forever. I have clothes in my closet that I've owned for a long time.
Wow.
A long time. Not long enough, though, because if I had waited, all of my clothes from the 90s would be straight up vintage.
Popping
right now.
That's true.
And where are they? Probably in a landfill because I didn't know shit.
Yeah.
But now I know now.
There's this landfill I forget where it is, but you can literally see the pile of clothes from space. It's so bad. The
floating pollution that's in the middle of the ocean is getting... No, wait. Forget the floating continent of pollution.
Yeah.
The fact that the literal wildlife, sea life, is rising up against humanity is giving me life. Every single time I see a orca jump up and land on someone's boat, I'm like, that's what you get, bitch. Like, I'm on the side of the orcas. They're like, we've been trying to tell you guys for a minute.
Yeah, it's like, it's too
hot. We don't like you here. That's why we've been biting off your legs.
Oh. Poor animals.
Now they're like, all right, we'll capsize your boat.
Now they're like, I'm gonna swim up to shore.
I'm like, they made that movie Avatar. It's just like the Avatar.
It is.
I'm like,
it is. You know, we be predicting our own demise.
100%.
Well, so I guess lesson learned is, y'all, y'all, we are in a new, if you couldn't tell, new set who this. One of our podcast producers is really trying hard to not make a scene. And now she's the whole scene.
The way she's tiptoeing through. It's like how somebody who's about to get murdered tiptoe through in like a horror movie.
Hello? Anybody there? She's like, I always love that in horror movies where they're like, is anyone there? I'm like, I really try not to be that black person that'd be like, oh, in the middle, but like, I'm always like, really?
I actually do that when I'm home alone though.
Yeah, me too.
I can't help it. It's an instinct.
Oh no, is anybody there? You're about to die.
I think I always just assume it's like one of my kids are coming in here to take all my food.
Oh.
But then
you mean like you actually, like when you're home alone and you
when
hear
I'm home
something.
alone and I hear something, I'm literally like, hello? Like, it's not like a hello. It's like, hello? What?
Who's there?
Yeah, and then when there's nothing, I'm like, oh, no. And then usually I just fall back asleep.
Oh.
I'd rather be asleep if
like,
something's going to happen.
Oh, boy.
We're off topic.
Yes, we're off topic. And I was saying that I think the lesson for today is really like...
Don't ever buy a plastic water bottle again, producers of this show and other people. Reading.
Red. You've been read. But also, like, you know, I think this goes for climate change, but a lot of other topics is like, before you just like hold steadfast to an opinion, do some research.
Yep.
It's always good to know the other side, right? Like, even for your own edification, you can still decide after you learn that you still want to keep thinking and feeling the same way you do. So it's not a threat, you know, to gain more knowledge and information, and it might just make a huge difference in your life and like all of our lives if we we're a little bit more open-minded. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review. And we love you too.
We love you. Bye.